Hello peoples of the internet, I'm Mo, and this is what I read in the months of July and August. So the first thing that I read in the month of July was a series of science fiction books. I actually did not read the entire series, I read the first 3 books in it. This is an older science fiction series. I think it's mid-60s, but it could be early 70s, and I'm not sure because I've already unhauled the physical copies that I had. Not that I disliked them, but I don't really see myself rereading them. So this series is called the Anthony Villiers Adventures, and I picked it up because I heard it was supposed to be a science fiction comedy of manners, and I thought that sounds right up my alley. And in certain ways it was. There were things that I really liked about it, but it was also just really weird, and in ways that I wasn't sure how I felt about it, I guess. And so each of the books in this series does have a self-contained plot and story, but I'm not going to talk about them individually, although I'm going to list them off for you guys. I will talk about them kind of as a whole. So the first book in the series is called Starwell, the second book was The Third Revolution, and the third book was Mask World. So I really struggle to talk about these books a little bit. So they're about this character who's the title character of the series, Anthony Villiers, and he is a minor nobleman out in space, and he travels around different places, oftentimes hiding the fact that he is part of the nobility, and just having different sorts of misadventures. For the most part, these are pretty low stakes types of adventures. There are things about the world building that I really liked. I thought that all of the aliens in the series were really unique and interesting, and the way that their cultures and physical differences were done was really interesting. None of them, I don't think there were any humanoid aliens at all in the series, although some of them did walk on 2 legs and talk. None of them were human-shaped. Yeah, so this I think was more of an interesting read than, oh, that was really fun read for me. I did give each of these 3 stars, I think. No, I gave Third Revolution 2.5 because I think I still don't really understand that book. It was just really odd, and I don't quite understand the plot arc. It felt really rambling, I guess, and meandering instead of directed sort of plot. So yeah, I have a hard time talking about these books because I'm still not sure how I feel about them or if I understand them, I guess. But if you're looking at reading some older science fiction, this might be something that would be of interest to you. The next couple of things that I read in the month of July were the last 2 novels in the Lord Peter Wimsey Mysteries series, and those are Gaudy Night and Busman's Honeymoon. These are the last 2 novels chronologically in the series. And so Gaudy Night is a little different from some of the others in that, firstly, it's not a murder mystery. Not all of the books in the series are murder mysteries, but most of them are. And secondly, in that it's one of the novels that is told from the point of view of Harriet Vane instead of from Peter's point of view. So this novel is about Harriet goes back to visit her alma mater, which is a women's college in Oxford, and discovers that they've been having some troubles. And basically someone has been writing harassing and threatening notes to people and sending them out anonymously, and there's been some acts of vandalism, and they believe that this has all been done by the same person, but they don't want to go to the authorities about it because they're afraid of a scandal and the sort of bad publicity that it'll bring to the college. So they figure that since Harriet has had some, connection to these types of detective-y things, that she should help them out because she's a mystery author and she's helped with doing some detecting before and been involved in cases. And Harriet doesn't really feel like she's the proper person to do the job, but since she's the one that they asked, she decides she'll help them out. And then soon finds out that she feels like she's a little bit in over her head and Lord Peter is out of country. So the first like half or maybe 2/3 of the book, it's just Harriet. Peter is not there. And then later on in the book he shows up and they do their detectiving together. And this one really focuses less on mystery and more on character development. This is really about Harriet's struggle to kind of find a balance between her career and her love life and other things. And also because it's set in the 1930s, it really talks about the feminism at that time and feminist movements and how things were perceived by the general public and the sorts of things that women were dealing with and trying to move forward with at the time. I really enjoyed this one. I don't remember if I gave it 4 stars or 4.5. It was between 4 and 5, and I don't remember now because it's been a little while. I don't think I gave it 5 because so much of it didn't have Peter in it, and he's a big part of the reason why I really like the series. So yeah. Last book in the series I really enjoyed, and you can probably tell by the title, Busman's Honeymoon, that this is the book in which Lord Peter gets married. And of course, while he's on his honeymoon, runs into a mystery, because that's what happens in mystery novels. Although this book also is really heavy on character development and doesn't have too much going on with the mystery. I mean, the mystery is definitely there and present, but it's probably like 1/3 mystery and 2/3 character development. Yeah, I think depending on why you're reading the series, you would either really like this book or not like it as much. I think the mystery is well done in it, but like I said, it's not making up most of the content. I personally read the books more for the characters than for the mysteries, although I do like the mysteries as well, so I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was great. Also, I have mentioned this before, and I promise I am working on it, even though it's not out yet. I will be doing a full series overview video about the Lord Peter Wimsey mysteries. I'm still doing some like prep work for that video, but it will get filmed sometime soon, hopefully within the next month here. So that will be up there for you guys, because I do highly recommend the series. It's really great. The next thing that I read in July was a reread for me, and that was this, To Say Nothing of the Dog by Connie Willis. This is a comic time travel book in which these historians are going back in time trying to find out specific information, but then something goes wrong, like with the continuum, and they're trying to fix it all, and they're traveling back and forth between the future and 1914 and the Victorian era, and all sorts of hijinks and different things go on. There's also various references to literature from both from the Victorian era and from the 1930s, and yeah, this is a lot of fun. Like I said, it's a reread. Really enjoyed it, even better the second time, I think, than reading it the first time. So if you've heard of To Say Nothing of the Dog, because this is an award-winning book, don't feel intimidated by it at all, because it's a comedy and it's just like rollicking and great. The next 5 books that I read in the month of July, I read for Booktubeathon, so I'm not really going to talk about them too much here because I already did a wrap-up for that. So I'm just going to mention them and maybe say like 1 sentence about them, and then I will link my wrap-up video from Booktubeathon, so if you want to hear any more details, you can go watch that one and hear me talk about them there. So the first thing I read for that was A Hatful of Sky by Terry Pratchett. This is one of his Discworld novels. It's the second in the Tiffany Aching series, and I gave it 4 stars. The next thing that I read was Old Man's War by John Scalzi. You've probably seen this one going around. It's a military science fiction novel about somebody who goes off to join the military when he turns 75. Really good writing, really fun story. I am planning on picking up the rest of this series at some point, hopefully sooner than later, but I don't own any of the others yet, so we will see. The next thing I read was Rudyard Kipling. This is, you can't see the title on here, so that's not very helpful, is it? This is Just So Stories. which is a collection of children's stories that he wrote, and they're written out in this really sort of meant to be read out loud type of style, and he has all of these little comments and asides and stuff in there, and these were a lot of fun. I think actually I gave everything that I read during Booktubeathon 4 stars, so all very good. The other ones that I read were electronic. I read A Dreamer's Tales by Lord Dunsany, which is another of his short story collections. Really enjoyed that one. I also listened to on audiobook C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce, which is a sort of allegory, I guess, type of thing about a bus of people that is traveling back and forth between heaven and hell, and why people are getting on and off the bus and why they're deciding to go the way that they're going. And I wanted to recommend the audiobook for that one particularly, actually, because the narrator did a fantastic job. I'm not sure what his name is. If I remember, I will put it down in the description box, so if you're interested in looking him up. I read one more, or finished rather, one more book in the month of July, and that was one that I started for Booktubeathon but did not finish during the week, and that was The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster. This is a children's novel that is basically based off of puns and wordplay. So our main character, Milo, finds this toll booth in his bedroom, and he's not really sure why it's there, but he follows the directions and puts it together, and when he goes through, he is transported to a magical land, basically. And all of the characters and places and everything in this new world are based off of, like, puns and different sorts of wordplay. As you see on the cover, we have his friend Tok, the watchdog, who of course has a clock inside of him. So he has to go on a quest once he is in this world to save the princesses Rhyme and Reason from the place where they have been banished to and bring order back to the kingdom, basically. And yeah, it's just a really fun sort of story, and actually has a lot of good points that add a little bit more depth to it too for a children's book. So I would recommend this one, both to younger readers and to adults who like children's books. So now we're moving on to the books that I read in the month of August, which was actually not very many books, although it was a decent number of pages. The first thing that I read in August was this. This is The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. I've already talked about this in a couple of different videos. I really liked this book. So this is a historical novel about a group of people in 12th century England and their lives, and how politics and different things affected their lives, basically. I'm not going to go any more in depth with it than that right now, because I do have a full review of this up. So if you're interested in hearing more, I will link that down below and you can go check it out. But needless to say, I thought it was great and I gave it 5 stars, so highly recommended. The next thing that I read in August was Shards of Honor by Lois McMaster Bujold. This is a military science fiction novel. It is the first novel in the Vorkosigan saga, which is getting rather long, and the series just won the Hugo this year, so it's very well beloved. This, instead of following the main character of the Vorkosigan saga, which is Miles Vorkosigan, this follows his parents and kind of shows how they got together, basically. But genre-wise, it is definitely a military science fiction novel. So both of our main characters are in the military, and they meet while one who is sort of scouting out this newfound planet runs into another group of people who have just mutinied. And so the captain, who was supposed to have been killed in this mutiny, has also been sort of lost on this planet, and they end up needing to help each other survive and try to, you know, get back to civilization and deal with all of this other stuff. And that's like the first fourth, maybe, or maybe third of the book. And then there are other political and military things going on, and we just kind of follow the lives of these two characters as things change and circumstances sort of bring them together. At points it was kind of an intense book, like psychologically and emotionally. but it was also very good. I definitely enjoyed it, and I am definitely planning on continuing with the series. The last book that I read in August was Arabella and the Battle of Venus. This is the second book in a series, which started last year with Arabella of Mars. And I'm not sure how many books it's planned to be, but this is a YA steampunk alternate history type of thing in which space travel was invented like way before it was an actual history, and so they have various colonies on different planets back in the Regency period, and our main character grew up on Mars, but her family is English, and so in the first book she travels back to England and then back to Mars, and has lots of swashbuckling sort of naval space things going on. And in this particular book, her fiance, who is the captain of a ship, has sailed off to do some trading in Venus, and has been captured by Napoleon's forces and is now a prisoner of war. And she finds out about this and decides that she needs to go save him. So this is sort of like half swashbuckling, like adventures on ships, and half like heist, escape from a prison camp type of story. I really enjoyed it. It was a little bit more emotionally intense than the first one because of the whole prisoner of war aspect and the things that they're having to deal with there. But I thought it was well done and definitely plan to continue with the series. So I believe that's everything that I read in July and August. I have a couple of things that I started but didn't finish, so they'll be going in my next wrap-up. Let me know if you've read any of these or are planning to read any of these and what your thoughts are. Would love to chat with you guys down in the comments about them. Otherwise, until next time, happy reading!